Jack Carter was just an ordinary man, used to be a diplomat and part-time engineer, but now he traveled the galaxy alone in his small ship. After years of working between stars and alien species, he had retired early. Now, he just wanted peace, adventure, maybe a place to settle someday, but he never thought he would crash near. The throne world of the Sorellan Empire, it happened fast. One of his ship's thrusters failed. Backup systems didn't respond. Jack tried to land on a nearby moon, but the ship spun out of control. He managed to crash land in a large green field near the capital of Sorellan Prime. He expected trouble. He expected armed guards or maybe to be locked up for entering royal space instead. He was invited into the palace. The royal guards who found Jack were tall, blue-skinned aliens with glowing golden eyes. They wore armor made of smooth crystal and silk, but they weren't aggressive. They looked surprised to see a human. After checking that he was not a threat, they offered to take him to the capital for medical treatment. Jack had a few cuts and bruises, but nothing serious. Still, he was in no condition to repair his ship on his own, so they brought him to the Grand Palace of Queen Zelaria. The palace looked like something out of a dream. It floated above the ground, supported by energy columns that pulsed with light. Long silver bridges stretched from tower to tower. Golden vines climbed the walls. Inside, the floors were smooth like water, the walls humming softly with music. Jack was placed in a guest chamber and told to rest. He was given food, water, and medical care. After 2 days, he received an official invitation. The queen wished to meet him. Queen Zelaria entered the room with quiet power. She wore a flowing dress of white and gold. Her skin shimmered like polished marble, a pale blue tone, and her long silver-white hair fell past her shoulders. A crown floated just above her head, glowing softly. Jack stood and bowed, unsure what was proper. "You are the human who fell from the sky," she said, her voice calm and gentle. "Not on purpose," Jack replied with a weak smile. She laughed, a soft sound that echoed around the chamber. "I believe that," she said. Then she surprised him with her next words. "I need your help." Zelaria explained everything. Sorellan law was strict and old. After the death of the former king, her husband, she was allowed to remain queen for only 1 full cycle. After that, she had to either choose a new partner or give up the throne, but she had no desire to marry anyone in the noble court. Too many were power-hungry or cruel. The council was pressuring her every day. Time was running out, so she searched for another way. There was one old rule that could help her: a ceremonial marriage, short-term symbolic bond that would satisfy. Tradition, but the catch? It had to be someone not connected to any house or family, someone neutral, someone the nobles couldn't control. A stranger, a foreigner, a human. "You want me to marry you? Just for show?" Jack asked, eyes wide. "Yes," she said, "only for 1 year. After that, you are free to leave. I will pay for your ships, repair, and you will be protected by the crown." Jack rubbed his chin. "That's the strangest proposal I've ever heard." "I am aware," Zelaria said with a soft smile, "but I do not make it lightly." He didn't know what to say. This was madness. He had just crashed here. He didn't even know this woman. But the way she looked at him, calm, proud, tired, made him pause. She didn't seem cruel. She seemed lonely. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He walked through the palace gardens. Strange glowing plants lit the path. The air smelled like soft flowers and something sweet. He thought about his choices. He could say no, try to fix the ship on his own, and leave. Or he could help. It was only 1 year. It wasn't a real marriage. And maybe, just maybe, she really did need someone who wouldn't use her. By morning, he had made his decision. Next day, he met her again. "I'll do it," he said. Zelaria tilted her head. Even after thinking it over, "Yeah," Jack said, "I'll be your temporary husband. Just don't expect me to wear a crown." The queen actually laughed. The bonding ceremony was strange but beautiful, in the middle of the palace's heart. Under a glowing tree, the queen and Jack stood side by side. They wore ceremonial robes, Sorellan priest chanted the old vows. Jack had to place his hand over hers. Small crystal between them lit up as a sign of agreement. It was done. The court watched in silence. Some nobles looked angry. Some looked curious. Jack just felt awkward. But Zelaria, she looked calm, at peace. Later that night, back in his new royal quarters, Jack sat on the edge of his bed. He stared at the bond ring on his finger, a small, floating band of silver energy. He didn't feel married, but something had changed. Just before the ceremony ended, the queen had squeezed his hand. Her eyes met his, and in that moment, Jack had seen something behind them, not just duty, not just survival, but a quiet hope, and maybe something more. Jack Carter was now the ceremonial husband of an alien queen. He had expected strange food, polite smiles, and a lot of silence. He was not expecting morning meetings, formal dinners, glowing reporters, and a queen who started looking at him like he actually belonged beside her. From the moment the ceremony ended, everything changed. Jack no longer stayed in a guest room. He was now given chambers near the queen's private wing. His every move was watched by guards, by advisors, and by the nobles who clearly did not like a human. Being this close to their ruler, he kept reminding himself, this is temporary, just 1 year. I'm only helping her keep the throne, but something about Queen Zelaria made him forget that sometimes. Every morning began the same way. A soft chime rang in his chamber. The door opened by itself. Floating silver tray carried breakfast fruits that glowed, blue tea that steamed upward, and small bread rolls shaped like stars. He would eat quickly, dress in the long flowing robes given to him, and join Queen Zelaria in the grand hall. She was always already there, sitting on her throne looking like calm and beauty wrapped in power. She would glance at him and smile gently. "Good morning, husband." Jack always tried to smile back, but he wasn't sure if it looked real. The word husband still felt strange. Too big, too serious. The duties were not hard, but they were constant. Jack had to attend court sessions, greet alien ambassadors, walk beside the queen in public gardens, and sometimes just stand behind her while she spoke to the crowd. He did his best to stay quiet and respectful. But sometimes, the queen asked for his opinion. "Jack, what do you think of this law?" She would ask softly during court. He would pause, surprised every time. "Well, back on Earth, we usually ask the people what they think first," he once said. The room had gone silent. Nobles looked shocked, but Zelaria only nodded and said, "Interesting." Later, she asked him to sit beside her during the next meeting. He was no longer just a background figure. He was becoming involved. One afternoon, after a long public event, Jack was walking beside the queen in the palace gardens. "I hope I'm not making a fool of myself," Jack said with a tired breath. Zelaria turned her head. "You are doing more than I hoped. They listen when you speak, even if they don't like it." Jack rubbed the back of his neck. They don't hide their dislike very well. Zelaria smiled gently. "You're not from this world, Jack. But sometimes an outsider can see truth more clearly." He didn't know what to say. The way she looked at him now was different, warmer, closer. He quickly looked away that night. Something unexpected happened. Jack was in his chamber, reading some Sorellan history scrolls. He had started studying them out of boredom, but now he was trying to understand the laws and traditions better, so he wouldn't embarrass her. A soft knock came at the door. He opened it and found Queen Zelaria standing there. No guards, no crown, it's just her, in a soft white robe that shimmered like morning light. "Can I come in?" she asked. Jack stepped aside quickly, sure what this meant. She sat near the large glass window and looked out at the 2 moons. "I used to sit here with him," she said softly. Jack understood. She was talking about her late husband, the former king. He was brave, she continued, but he was always distant, always thinking of the next battle, the next enemy. "We shared a throne, but rarely words." She turned to look at Jack. "But you speak like a friend." Jack's voice was quiet. "That's all I am, Your Majesty, Zelaria," she corrected. "She's Zelaria." Tonight, no titles. Jack nodded. They sat in silence, watching the moons rise together. In the days that followed, something changed between them. Their conversations became easier. Jack started joking more. The Queen laughed more often, and not just politely. She asked about Earth, what oceans smelled like, what chocolate tasted like, what children looked like when they played in the snow. Jack told stories about sunsets, street vendors, and noisy cities full of music. She listened with shining eyes. He could see the loneliness in her face start to fade, but not everyone liked that. Whispers started in the palace halls. The nobles were watching. Some believed Jack was becoming too close. Others feared he might try to stay longer than allowed. Few wanted him gone. A council member named Lord Veros approached Jack one day in a private hallway. "You are not one of us," he said coldly. "Do not forget your place, human. You are here by favor, not right." Jack didn't respond, simply walked away. But he told the Queen about it later. She listened carefully, then placed a hand on Jack's arm. "If they speak again," she said firmly, "tell them I chose you, and I do not regret it." Her touch lingered longer than usual. One evening, Jack entered the garden again to find the Queen already there. She was alone, standing by a glowing tree. Her face tilted toward the stars. "You come here often," Jack said. Stepping beside her, "This is the one place no one speaks lies," she whispered. "The stars are always honest." Jack looked up too. "And do you think they're watching us?" "I hope they are," she said softly. Jack turned toward her. For the first time, he saw something more than duty in her eyes. He saw feeling, real, deep, and possibly dangerous. "Zalaria," began, unsure what to say, but she reached out and gently held his hand. "I don't want this to end," she whispered. Jack froze. He had no answer. Not yet. Jack Carter stood in silence. The Queen's hand was warm in his. Her voice was soft, but her words were heavy. "I don't want this to end," she had said. Jack looked into her bright, glowing eyes. For a moment, he forgot he was just a temporary husband. He forgot about politics, old alien laws, and strange customs. In that moment, it was just him and her. Two souls under the stars. But that moment passed quickly. Jack gently pulled his hand away and looked down. "Zalaria, I didn't come here for this. You know that?" "I know," she said, her voice quiet. "But things change." He gave her a soft smile. "I'm not a king, just a man who crashed his ship." She looked at him sadly. "I'm just a queen who lost her heart." Jack had no reply. He walked away slowly that night, sure of what was growing between them. The next few days were tense. Jack tried to keep things normal, went to the meetings, stood beside the Queen in public events, and spoke politely. During court sessions, but something had changed. The Queen's gaze lingered longer. Her voice became softer when she spoke to him. The nobles noticed. Whispers grew louder. Rumors spread through the palace. "She's falling for him," some said. "He's just a human," others sneered. "He doesn't belong." One bold noble, Lady Serena, stood up during a council meeting. "This human consort must leave after his term. The bond was ceremonial only, cannot turn into something real." Queen Zalaria raised her hand, silencing the room. "I will decide what is real," she said sharply. "Not you. Not the council. Me." The room went quiet. Jack sat in silence beside her, feeling the weight of her words. Later that day, Jack found her alone in the palace library. She was staring out a tall window, her hands behind her back. "Zalaria," he said softly, "maybe we should step back, just a little, let things cool down." She didn't turn. "Why?" "Because they whisper, because they fear you." "No," Jack said, "because I don't want to hurt you." She turned to face him now. "You are not hurting me, Jack. You are the only one who sees me, not just the crown." Jack sighed. "I'm afraid I'm starting to see you too clearly. That's the problem." They looked at each other for a long time. Finally, Zalaria said, "If you truly wish to leave, I won't stop you. But if you stay, I won't pretend anymore." Jack didn't answer. He just walked out quietly, but his heart stayed behind. That night, the danger came. A group of masked attackers entered the palace during a festival. They moved quickly, cutting through guards with sharp energy blades. Their target was clear. Queen Jack was in a side hall when he heard the alarms. He didn't think. He just ran. He reached the throne room as two attackers charged towards Zalaria without a weapon. Jack did the only thing he could. He tackled one to the ground, grabbing his arm and smashing his mask against the stone floor. The second attacker raised his blade and slashed across Jack's side. Zalaria screamed. Guards finally arrived, cutting down the attackers. Jack collapsed to the floor. Blood pouring from his wound, Zalaria dropped beside him, holding him in her arms. "Stay with me," she cried, pressing her hand over the bleeding. "Jack, please stay." His vision blurred, but he managed one weak smile. "Still, it's just a temporary husband, right?" Then everything went black. He woke up 3 days later. The lights above him were soft and warm. The bed beneath him was smooth and cool. Zalaria was sitting beside him, her eyes red from crying. He turned his head. "You look terrible," she laughed, even as tears fell. "You nearly died." "I told you I wasn't a warrior," he whispered. "But you fought for me anyway," she said. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his side. "Don't move," she said quickly, helping him lie back. "You're healing, but slowly. Human body needs time." Jack looked at her. "You stayed here the whole time?" "No, I haven't left your side," she said. He stared at the ceiling. "So, what now?" She leaned closer. "Now I stop pretending I don't care." Jack looked into her eyes. "And if I care to?" She reached down, gently taking his hand. "Then maybe we stop calling this temporary." The attack changed everything. The people now saw Jack not just as a guest or a fake husband, but as a protector. The news spread fast. The human consort risked his life to save the queen. Crowds gathered outside the palace gates, cheering his name. The nobles grew quiet. Some still whispered. But none dared speak against him openly now. Jack was given a Medal of Honor by the queen herself in a public ceremony. She pinned it on his chest. She whispered in his ear, "You are more than I hoped for." He didn't say anything then, but later that night, he took her hand under the starlit sky and said, "I'm not going anywhere." They started spending more time together, not for duty, but for themselves. They laughed more, walked the gardens without guards, shared meals without courtiers. Jack told her about Earth's cities, its strange animals, its noisy children. Zalaria showed him the secret parts of the palace, the crystal caves below, the silent tower where her mother used to meditate, the fountain where she played as a child. They were no longer just queen and consort. They were something more, something real. One evening, while walking by the glowing lake behind the palace, Jack stopped and looked at her. "I still don't know how this happened." He said, "You crashed your ship," she teased. "I meant this," he said, touching her hand. She smiled. "Happened because you were kind, because you were honest, and because when everyone else saw my crown, you saw me." Jack took a deep breath. "I never thought I'd fall for an alien queen," she laughed. "I never thought I'd fall for a human who didn't even comb his hair." They stood by the lake, fingers intertwined. Neither of them said the word love, but it was there in the silence, in the smiles, in the way neither one wanted to let go. Jack Carter never expected his name to echo through palace halls. He had come to Cyrillon Prime by accident. Crash. A broken ship, a simple repair. But now guards saluted him. Citizens cheered when he passed. Children waved from balconies, shouting, "Consort Jack" and "Queen Zalaria." She stood proudly beside him, holding his hand like it belonged there. The days of pretending were over. Jack was no longer temporary. Oh, man. And that made some people very angry. Behind closed doors, the royal council grew restless. Lord Veros, the most powerful noble after the queen, slammed his fist on the stone table. "This human is turning into a king." "The people love him," said another noble. "He's dangerous." Veros snapped. "He distracts the queen. He changes tradition. He weakens the court." The nobles argued for hours, Finally, they sent a message to Zalaria. End the marriage, send the human away, or face a vote to remove the crown. Jack read the message silently, sitting beside Zalaria in her private chamber. I knew this would happen, he said. I knew too, she replied. Her voice was calm, but her hands were clenched. They fear what they can't control. I can leave, Jack said gently, before it becomes worse. Zalaria stood, walking to the large glass window. Her eyes watched the twin moons in the sky. You want to leave? She asked softly. Jack stood too. I didn't say that. She turned around. Then don't. I won't lose you. But if they remove you from the throne, I don't care about the throne, she shouted suddenly. Not if it means giving you up. Jack was shocked. She rarely raised her voice. But this time, her emotions poured out. For years, I ruled with a quiet heart, she said, tears in her eyes. I followed duty. I did what was expected. I married a noble I didn't love. I gave my soul to this empire. She stepped closer, and then you came. A stranger, a human. And for the first time, I felt alive. Jack took her hand. Zalaria, I won't let them take you from me, she said firmly. Let them try. I'll fight them all. The news spread fast. The queen refused the council's demand. She stood by Jack. The nobles planned a formal vote to declare her unfit to rule. But before the vote could happen, a new threat arrived. A large fleet of warships entered the edge of Sorellan space. They belonged to the Dreckner Syndicate, an enemy that had waited years to strike. Their leader sent a message. The queen is weak. Her court is divided. Surrender or be destroyed. The palace fell into chaos. Zalaria gathered her generals. We need to prepare defenses, she said. But our fleet is scattered, one general said, and the nobles refuse to give full support. Jack watched silently, then stepped forward. Let me help, he said. The generals looked surprised. You are not a warrior, one said. No, Jack agreed. But I've worked on starships. I know strategy. I've seen war, Zalaria nodded. He speaks true. Give him access. For 3 days, Jack worked non-stop. He studied their defenses, found weak points, and made improvements. He helped. Repair defense cannons, organized emergency drills, and advised the generals. He also sent a secret message to a nearby human colony, requesting backup. He didn't know if they would come in time, but he had to try. Meanwhile, Zalaria stood firm in the palace. The people rallied behind her. They called her the Moon Flame and the Queen who defies. But inside her heart, she feared losing everything: her people, her home, and him. The Dreckner fleet arrived sooner than expected. Black and red ships filled the sky. Giant destroyers moved into orbit. The first attack struck the outer cities. The ground shook. Fires spread across the horizon. Zalaria refused to hide. She stood on the palace balcony, speaking to the world. We will not kneel. We are Sorellan. We will fight, and we will rise. Jack stood beside her, wearing a command badge on his chest. He looked at the sky and whispered, Please, hurry. The battle began. Sorellan fighters launched into space. Defense towers fired glowing beams into the stars. The capital shook with every blast. Jack worked from the command room, giving orders, helping coordinate the fleet. Zalaria stayed at his side, calm and steady, but they were outnumbered. The Dreckner pressed forward, sending boarding ships toward the palace. They're coming here, a soldier shouted. Seal the gates. Zalaria ordered. Jack grabbed a plasma rifle. It's time to get my hands dirty. The palace turned into a battlefield. Jack and Zalaria fought side by side. Guards fell. Walls cracked. Smoke filled the air. A Dreckner warrior charged at Zalaria. Jack stepped in front and fired again and again until the enemy fell. Blood covered his arm, but he didn't stop. Stay behind me. He yelled, I'm not leaving you, she shouted back. They fought through halls, defended chambers, and stood their ground in the throne room, but soon More Dreckner soldiers broke through the outer doors. They were trapped until a new sound filled the air. A human warship screamed from the sky. Silver ships appeared, Earth's response team. They fired heavy blasts at the Dreckner fleet. Fighters rushed in, taking out enemy vessels with precision. The Dreckner were caught by surprise. Their formation broke. Inside the palace, Earth Marines dropped in, securing the halls and rescuing the Queen and Jack. The battle turned by sunrise. The enemy fleet was gone. The city was saved. Jack stood in the ruined throne room, his arm bleeding, his clothes torn. Zelleria walked to him, slow and steady. "You called them?" she whispered. "I hoped they'd come." Jack said, smiling weakly. She hugged him tightly, tears running down her cheeks. "You saved my people." He pulled back just enough to see her face. "You saved me." Later that night, the people gathered in the palace plaza. They lit candles, sang songs, and called out two names: Queen Zelleria, Consort Jack. The nobles did not speak. They had no power left. The people had chosen. In her chamber, Zelleria sat beside Jack, wrapping his wounds. "You nearly died again," she said softly. "Seems like a habit," he joked. She touched his face. "They can't take you from me now." Jack looked at her, heart pounding. "And if I don't want to go?" She smiled. "Then stay. Not as a symbol, not as a shield, but as mine." Jack leaned forward and kissed her. Not for duty, not for the crown, but for love. The sun rose slowly over Suralong Prime. The sky glowed soft blue and gold. Smoke from the battle still drifted over the distant hills. But in the capital, the air was calm. For the first time in many days, there was peace. Jack Carter stood on the palace balcony, looking out over the city. People were rebuilding. Children ran through the streets again. Flags of the royal crest waved proudly from the towers. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. "You're up early," said Queen Zelleria, her voice gentle. Jack smiled without turning. "Couldn't sleep. Too much in my head." She stepped beside him and leaned on the railing. "I know the feeling." They stood in silence for a moment, side by side. Then Jack asked quietly, "Do you think they'll ever accept me?" Zelleria looked at him. "They already do." He raised an eyebrow. "Even the nobles?" She chuckled softly. "The nobles have no choice anymore. The people chose you. And after what you did in the battle, no one can question your place." Jack sighed. "It still feels strange. I came here by accident. I was supposed to stay for a few days, a few weeks at most." She looked at him with warmth in her eyes. And now, he turned toward her, taking her hand in his. "Oh, I don't want to leave." Later that day, a public ceremony was held in the palace square. Thousands gathered, Sorellan citizens, Earth envoys, guards, and nobles. Even the children from the outer cities came to see the event. Queen Zelleria stood in her golden robes, tall and proud. Beside her stood Jack, wearing a deep blue ceremonial robe stitched with stars, Earth's symbol woven into Sorellan silk. The royal speaker raised his voice. "Today, do we honor two hearts who saved this world. The Queen, our light, and the consort, our sword." The crowd cheered. Jack felt overwhelmed. It stood on battlefields, spoken at councils, and repaired warships. But this was different. This was acceptance. This was family. Then the speaker looked toward the Queen. "Do you wish to make the bond permanent?" Zelleria smiled and turned to Jack. "I do." The speaker looked at Jack. "And do you, Jack Carter of Earth, accept her not just as queen, but as your partner, your equal, your love?" Jack looked at Zelleria. Her eyes were soft, her hand warm in his. "I do." The energy crystal between them lit up again, but this time, brighter than before. The floating ring around their hands turned gold. The people roared in joy, no longer temporary, no longer just for ceremony. This was real. The days that followed were filled with change. Jack was no longer just a royal consort. He was given a new title, High Advisor of Unity. It meant he would work closely with the Queen, not just in the palace, but across the star systems. Together, they created a new council one with humans, Cyrellans, and even diplomats from other species. Jack believed every voice should matter. Zalaria supported him fully. They rebuilt cities, opened new schools, began space projects that connected Earth and Cyrellan Prime. More closely than ever before, some nobles still grumbled in quiet corners, but their voices were weak now. The people believed in their queen, and they trusted the human who stood beside her. At night, when the palace halls were quiet, Jack and Zalaria would sit by the glowing lake behind the throne room. Sometimes they said nothing. Sometimes they laughed and told stories. And sometimes they dreamed aloud. "I want to visit Earth someday," Zalaria said one evening, resting her head on his shoulder. "You'd love the oceans," Jack said. "Want the music and ice cream?" "Ice cream?" she asked. Jack chuckled. "I'll make sure the palace chef learns." She smiled and closed her eyes. "Promise?" "Promise," he whispered. One morning, months after the battle, Jack received a message from Earth's council. They offered him a high position in human politics, his own office, power, and a voice that could shape the future. Jack read. The message sat quietly for a while and then deleted it. Later that night, when Zalaria asked what the message was about, he only said, "Nothing important." She didn't ask again. She already knew his answer. Jack had found his place. It wasn't in Earth's towers or in human governments. It was here with her one day. While walking through a village outside the capital, a little girl ran up to them. She had big violet eyes and wore a handmade crown of leaves and flowers. She tugged Jack's hand. "Are you the Queen's real husband now?" Jack smiled and knelt beside her. "What do you think?" The girl looked at him seriously. "You make her smile more. That means it's real." Zalaria laughed softly behind him. Jack patted the girl's head. "Then yes, it's real." The child ran off happily, and Jack stood again. "You know," he said, "I used to believe I didn't belong anywhere. Not Earth, not the stars. I thought I'd just float forever." Zalaria took his hand. But now he looked at her, eyes steady, and now I have roots. She leaned in and whispered in wings. Seasons passed, new generations were born, new alliances formed between worlds, and in every tale sung across Cyrellan space. There was always one story that touched every heart, the story of the human who came from the sky, saved the queen, and stayed not for power, not for duty, but for love.